Good morning, everybody. My name is Jo Wortley. Beside me is my colleague Nicola Bakewell. Morning from Leicester. Thank you very much for inviting us to present today at the PENNA Awards. I feel very honoured for this. My post is of a prostate cancer remote monitoring nurse specialist. So I look after prostate cancer patients, but my primary role is for the lead of a remote monitoring service. My colleague Nikki is the remote monitoring administrator, and today we're going to tell you all about the prostate cancer remote monitoring service. Just a little bit of background, first of all. So we know that there's approximately 47,000 patients diagnosed with prostate cancer each year. We know that it is the most common cancer in men, and that the incidence of prostate cancer is actually increasing over the last 10 years. Unfortunately, approximately 11,500 men die from prostate cancer each year, but encouragingly, almost 400,000 men actually live with or after a diagnosis of prostate cancer. Elderly men make up for the majority of these people, and for most of them, they are likely to have a good prognosis and that they can live a full life until they die of something else, usually. So the purpose of the remote monitoring service, so basically prostate cancer is monitored using a sort of tumour marker called the PSA, which is stands for prostate specific antigen. And when patients have had prostate cancer treatment or are on treatment, this is one of the markers that we use to monitor it. And in 2016, one of our consultant colleagues felt that, you know, patients, there must be a better way of monitoring prostate cancer than patients having to come to appointments all the time and simply just to be told the results of a blood test. And therefore, he collaborated with GP practices, with the Macmillan project team, with our counterparts in the CCGs and our IT services, and we came up with a way of remotely monitoring prostate cancer using the PSA blood test and using a very safe IT-based system. The gains of this service is that patients basically do not have to come to the hospital anymore to be given the result of the PSA blood test. So they have their treatment, they're discharged from our service, and they are and they basically just have to have the PSAs done at home. This prevents them from having to wait around in hospital outpatient departments, where sometimes it used to be, you know, an hour or two simply to be told a blood test. Patients often had to have time off work. The relatives would have to have time off work to bring them. You know, it was the travel expense, the parking expense, all of that has made for a much better experience for the patients. But, you know, we also have some service gains also, because by promoting and running this service, it means that we're able to free up outpatient appointments for patients that are in more need of the service from the urologist and the oncologist, patients that, you know, have a more critical priority than these patients. So the service gains, including saving these outpatient appointments. Financially, the service was never really set up to be to make money, if you like. It's sort of a cost neutral service, really. It was more about the patient satisfaction and the patient experience. However, we obviously do save money on the outpatient appointments, but that's obviously is offset with myself, Nikki's salaries, you know, in the workup of the service. But it's really key to point out that, you know, this is not about making money. This is purely about patient experience. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about the patients that we have on the service. So patients that have prostate cancer often go on to have removal of the prostate, which is a prostatectomy, radical radiotherapy, brachytherapy, or are on hormone therapy. We use like a traffic light system, as you can see here. So the patients that are all stable following these treatments are usually added to the service within a year of their treatment. We sometimes accept patients that are on intermittent treatment, but we don't accept patients that are unstable, or in fact patients that are simply on active monitoring for their prostate cancer, because these patients have to come in for regular digital rectal examinations also. Next slide, please. So the process I'll just quickly run through. So patients seen in clinic by the consultant urologist or oncologist, they're told that their treatment's been successful and that they are now stable, and the consultant simply refers the patient to the service using a simple referral form. Myself and Nikki then vet the forms to make sure that it is an appropriate referral, and then we add the patient to our cancer information system. On here it says Infoflex. We have just recently changed to Somerset, but when I put this presentation through, it was Infoflex. Once we add the patient to the IT system, that generates a letter which is sent to the GP, sent to the patient, along with the blood test form to tell the patient when they need to have their first blood test, usually within 6 months. Within this, we also send out a information leaflet to the patient with all our contact details on, really all about alert levels. So patients that might be experiencing some problems, we mention the red flag symptoms, and they are also now sent an holistic needs assessment, which they're able to fill in at home. Patient simply goes to their GPs or a local hospital for a blood test. The result comes straight through to us within sometimes hours, and my colleague Nikki beside me will pick that blood test up on the computer system and review it. And a satisfactory result simply just generates another letter back to the patient and to the GP, just to give them the result and to say everything's fine, have another PSA done in 6 months, here's your form, etc. An unsatisfactory result is where I come to play a bit more. So I will discuss this with my consultant colleagues. Often we may have to arrange scans for the patients. I will obviously call the patient, have a chat with the patient and relative about their blood test. Sometimes we invite them in for a face-to-face talk with myself. And we can arrange all of this remotely, so patients don't have to come back to clinic to have their scans arranged, etc., etc. Eventually, however, they probably will return to clinic, but that can be done very quickly through myself. So it's a quick access back to the appropriate consultant that will manage their care. And if necessary, they'll go on to have further treatment. Some patients that have been referred back to clinic have actually then come back onto remote monitoring after further treatment. And that all works out very clear and very slick. Patients will be discharged from remote monitoring usually after about 5 years, but that's something we're working on with the CCGs and the GP practices at the moment to try and ensure that they also have a robust system that they're able to use in the community. Next slide, please. So just a bit about our progress so far. So we have had almost 800 referrals from our oncology consultants and over 600 referrals from urology. If you can see on this graph here, it just depicts what's happening in the input that we give. So out of those patients that have been referred so far, which actually takes us up to Feb 2020 again, because that's when I first put in the the presentation. As you can see, 290 have required my input, 150 patients have been returned to clinic, 73 patients have unfortunately deceased, but that's not always due to their prostate cancer, and we have had only 4 patients non-compliant. Next slide, please. So in a nutshell, to date, from October 2016 to Feb 2020, we've had 4,422 reviews. In 1 month, we actually reviewed 206 patients, which equates to 51 appointments saved. Next slide, please. We did a patient satisfaction survey in 2018, and we're looking to actually redo that in 2021. As you can see, patients are very satisfied with the service. They are very happy that their prostate cancer needs are being met. Just some quotes there that, you know, it's as good as a private healthcare system, and that they're getting very prompt reviews. We're very, very happy with the results of that. And I think it's very important to stress that patients particularly like the fact that they still have access to a specialist nurse, so they can call me if they have any problems, as can the GPs. And this makes for patients feeling secure, even though they're not physically being seen face to face, they still have that professional on the other end of the phone who can help them with any of their problems or just to answer any of their questions or queries. Next slide, please. So just very quickly, because I know we're running out of time, on top of everything else that we're doing in the remote monitoring service, we also run support groups. We normally help run health and wellbeing groups, and you know, we signpost patients all the time to relevant services. We're sending out information constantly. Our patients are very well looked after. Just to note, during COVID, obviously our services continue to run, and thankfully we have been able to run because it's remote, so patients are not having to come to the hospital for this service. We have had the occasional patient who have struggled to get their blood test done at the GPs, but apart from that, the majority of patients have continued to be safely monitored with their prostate cancer during the COVID epidemic. I think that's about it. Thank you.